You're listening to Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson Karbley. We're just two fans sharing our love for the game and Carolina Panthers football. So join us, crack open a cold one, some bubbly, a little wine, some scotch. We don't care, whatever makes you sleep better at night. Before we dive into the episode, a little self-promotion. Stop what you're doing. Go give us a follow on Twitter at Panthers on Tap. Join the discussion on our Facebook group. We have over 2,500 members. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast. Just search Panthers on Tap. We are officially 1 week away from the NFL draft. Bryson, we've been looking at some of the top prospects on the offensive side of the ball. Tonight, we're going to focus on the defensive side of the ball. I'm excited to get into it. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm ready for the NFL draft to come and go. It is. I feel like we should be on payroll for the Panthers with the amount of people we have to study and talk about. It's a fun and exciting time, but it is a lot of work. Talking about it every week. So I'm excited for it, but ready for it to be over.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both have been through enough mock drafts at this point. They're all getting old.
Yes.
And people are continuing to just throw shit at a wall and hope they're right when it comes to next week. But yeah, I mean, you can only go through so many mock drafts, and that's why we typically only will do one, because it gets old every single week. It's fun to see the outcomes and kind of play around with the certain programs out there, but it is time. We are tired of waiting. The break between the off season when play gets underway again is way too long. It'll be good, but it gives us a little bit more action next week. So we're both excited for it. Before we get into the prospects tonight defensively, I just wanted to touch on something real quick that came up really today through an ESPN report. I believe it was from Seth Wickersham, Don Van Netta Jr., and Jeremy Fowler. Another kind of in the weeds, behind the scenes, whatever you want to call it, behind Bill Belichick and the Atlanta Falcons. And Carolina Panthers came up in that discussion because at one point David Tepper was interested or had inquired about Bill Belichick, and that was actually last year before Frank Reich. But the report came out today, and they reported that the Panthers decided to pass on hiring Bill Belichick, and it said that Tepper, quote, often sifts through data to critique his coach's play calling. According to a source, that is tough to do with Bill Belichick as the figurehead. So, again, another situation where, the good old meddlers at it again for this organization. And I'm assuming, they're playing off of what he's done in the past. Up to this point, it seems like there has been, he's turned a leaf. But again, I don't believe that until I actually see it happen in the draft room and I see it on game days and how he acts moving forward. So I think it's too early to tell, but again, it's just another bad mark for Tepper and the Panthers back in the spotlight. I thought we were going to get kind of beyond this a little bit with this new regime, but clearly that is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, this is a situation where, in my opinion, the meddling was helpful in not hiring a coach that has struggled to win without the greatest quarterback of all time. So, I mean, it's frustrating to hear it. Obviously, I don't think he's going to change. I think he is who he is, and he operates his business how he operates his business. And I'm sure Dave Canales is aware of the things that Tepper does and will do. But in this situation specifically, I wasn't a big fan of hiring Bill Belichick in Carolina or for any team in particular. I think his time has come and gone in the NFL, and that's what happens for everyone, not just Bill Belichick. But Tom Brady's out of the league, although there were kind of a little bit of reports that from an interview he did that he said he would consider coming back and playing. But I think that's funny that he does that after Belichick's out of the league. That's interesting to me, but yeah, I mean, I think Tepper is going to do what Tepper does, and unfortunately for fans, that's going to drive away a lot of interest in this job. And I think that we have a good coach right now. I think Panthers Nation is excited to see what Dave Canales can do with this roster and the changes that have already been made and the progress that has been shown in building the roster with Dan Morgan and Dave Canales. But obviously, we have to see the production on the field first, and I do think it's going to come with time. I don't think that David Tepper is going to change his ways. I really don't, unfortunately. So it'll be a matter of, can Dave Canales handle it? Can he corral Tepper at all? Can someone tell him no? I don't know if Dan Morgan's that guy. I don't know if Canales is that guy. But if we're winning, then I would imagine Tepper will have less to gripe about. So,
Mm-hmm.
if the results on the field are positive, then hopefully he takes a step back and lets football people do what football people do.
Yeah, I think patience is going to be key with him because this is definitely a full scale rebuild, whether you want to admit it or not. Um, and then I think also it's important there's finally alignment across the board. It seems like between the coach and GM, so that's another plus. So we'll see where things go. Just wanted to touch on that real quick, but let's get into the prospects this evening because that's what most people care about right now with the draft just 7 days away. So I just wanted to bring up the top 30 visits here. And this is the list. Now, you see there's a couple starred players. Those are the local visits. There was obviously, I think there's 5, if I'm counting that right, that came, or six players. And there was a couple others that I didn't add to this list that were also local visits. But these are, some of the top names and big names that you guys, I'm sure, have heard about over these last month or two, and even over the course of these last couple seasons of prospects. But ton of wideouts, no surprise there, Bryson. Little shocked, and again, this list isn't totally official. It's just from what people have seen. Edgar Selmingo, you guys, we've had him on here a couple of times. He's done a really nice job. Keeping track and keeping tabs on these prospects and, posting on Instagram and things like that. Panthers Breakdown, I took some of the information from them as well. So shout out to them because they've done the same thing. But again, it's not official. There's obviously not 30 visits on here if you take away the 6 prospects that were local because they don't account against the top 30. But not a fan of not seeing a Donnie Mitchell on here. If I'm being honest with you, that's my draft darling. I don't know if that's intentional or he kept things pretty close to the chest on what he was doing. But I would like to see that, even though he's probably going to go he might even go top 20 in this draft from what I've been seeing in mock drafts lately. So we'll see. But that was one that comes to mind. Any guys that you thought maybe would be on this list or you're surprised to see on this list, Bryson?
I mean, I think it's interesting the amount of running backs. Not a whole lot, but just for them to be bringing in running backs for 30 visits, I think is interesting because generally speaking, the top 30 visits really point towards the areas that the team's looking to draft. I think throughout history in the NFL draft, top 30 visits, teams really do kind of show their hand a little bit with the areas that they're targeting. So it looks like they're really trying to get a running back, and I like that because I think that, like we've talked about before, talking about Blake Corum last week, I would have loved to see him on this list, but yeah, I mean, I think for them to identify that as a need, which I do think it is, and get a 3-down back that has the explosion, open it up and let it go, speed to break one off, and I think that's what's needed. And I know you're high on Jonathan Brooks. He is a good player. I don't know too much about Trey Benson or Jace McClellan, but two good schools, obviously FSU and Alabama. Really like the tight end. We talked about Jatavion Sanders. I think that he is electric and can really open things up for this offense or whatever offense he's drafted to based off of his, athletic abilities. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting prospects on this list. I think they've identified some really good, like, later round draft picks. When I say later, I mean that's going to fall to them in the second or third. And a couple of people that we'll talk about tonight probably. And it's exciting to see that they're identifying players that we also like.
Yeah, and you were pointing out, the need at running back. I thought it was interesting and I guess not shocked, but the defensive side, you can obviously tell I tried to section it out, offense and defense. That list is much shorter. And you don't see a lot of corners. And I don't know if I know obviously they went and don't discontinue just the top 30 visits, because they went and went to a lot of these pro days for some of these players. They went to see Nate Wiggins. They went to see a guy we're going to talk about tonight from Michigan. And so there is interest there in that position, but you don't see a lot of that on here. And again, those could be hidden for a reason, because they're targeting a guy up high, maybe in that pick 33. But that's one to mention that, Mike K, I feel like had put a spotlight on that really no one has with his, his article on the Charlotte Observer. And now I'm seeing a lot more people on the Panthers beat starting to pick up on this cornerback position. And you see that a little bit more over the last week or two. So that might be one to watch. Shocked that the center position, there's only one. Again, we don't know if some others were brought in, but that's another, area I thought maybe would be a little bit higher need, but maybe they don't think that way. So again, you can't take this, this isn't, this ain't the Bible or anything for them, but this, they have taken players, and Edgar has proven this, and check them out on Twitter. They have proven to take players that are on these visits. So take a snapshot of it, study it, whatever you want to do. But these are the guys that, you could see a couple of them go. So, but let's get into the prospects on the defensive side of the ball tonight. And we're going to start at the edge position. Now, me and Bryson were talking offline. He put some together, I put some together. I solely really focused on edge and corner. Same with you. We can, I guess, just briefly talk about Peyton Wilson, because I didn't really look too much into him besides what I saw at the combine and then what reports I've heard. But, he is one. I don't know if that's like a massive need for them. So I don't know if they really go in that direction, even if he was there in the second round. Be kind of shocked if they went with him. I don't know how you feel about that, but he's definitely a guy who's, he's inspired by Luke Kuechly. He's talked about him before. Dan Morgan's a former linebacker. This guy flies all over the field, makes a ton of tackles. Speaking of Wilson now, but yeah, I would be shocked if they went linebacker early in that second round. What about you?
Yeah, I would too. That's kind of why I focused on tonight, the edge, and then the couple of corners that we're going to be talking about. Peyton Wilson has a significant injury history. He's tore his ACL, and the long-term durability questions are there for sure. I think he's going to be older coming into the league. I believe he's going to be 24 at the time when he's drafted. It might be 25. I'm struggling to find his age right now, but he's, I believe he's a fifth-year senior. He's got the height, like 6'4". That's good. His 40 time was amazing, 4.43 for a linebacker. He's got the speed. I think he has a very high ceiling. But again, the injury history and the area of need for the Panthers, I just don't think taking a linebacker that high with the holes that need to be filled on the offensive side of the ball as well as the defensive side of the ball outside of linebacker, inside linebacker that is, then I don't see it happening. If he slips to maybe that second pick in the second round or the third round, then I think they definitely consider it just based off the connection. He's from Hillsborough, North Carolina. I'm working up there all the time. It's a local kid. Obviously played at NC State, and he's good. He's really good. I guess the biggest concern would be just his age and his durability. So I think when you have someone with those concerns, you don't take them with your first pick in the draft and at 33. So especially with the holes, like I said, that they need to fill in other positions.
Yeah, and fun fact, he turns 24 on Sunday. So there you go.
Okay.
So he is up there in age. He did win the Chuck Bednarik Award and also the Butkus Award. I believe Luke Kuechly won. I
Mm-hmm.
know he won the Butkus. I don't know about the other one, but um, he kind of fits that mold a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to go out and say he's the next Luke Kuechly, but um, seems like a very similar style of play from him. So yeah, it's tough to say because I was listening to a little bit of Josie Jewell this week, and he clearly, is hoping to get back to his form he did when Evero was in Denver, and he had his best season there. And so I think they probably value him a lot, and they're really hoping Shaq comes back from injury, and is doing all right because that's another hole. And then I mean, we didn't even talk about Frankie Lulu leaving, so that's like.
Yeah.
I mean, that was your one of your lead tacklers last year that is gone. So I do think there's some depth concerns there, and I'm sure they'll address that. Obviously, they've brought in a couple linebackers from this group, 4 of them. So on these top 30 visits, well, let's talk about edge. Let's get into it, and let's start with Chop Robinson. And Bryson, I'll let you go on Chop, and then I'll also jump in. So I put up his stats. This is from, just so you know, because I haven't even told you this. This is from PFF. And for that top graphic with the sacks, hits, hurries, batted, that from left to right is from 2023, 2022, 2021. So that's what it is across the board. And then you obviously see his grade, and we can make this full screen. But if you want to kick us off here with Chop Robinson.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect. People are gonna see him in that Penn State uniform and have YGM flashbacks. I feel like we can kind of compare a lot of these prospects to failed attempts at drafting players from different schools in Carolina, unfortunately. But when you're looking at those PFF grades there that you have on the screen, 92.3 pass rush grade, 93.1 true pass rush grade. Uh, he is a prototypical high ceiling edge defender in the league. A 4.48 40, which it's graded in the 99th percentile for edges. So he's got the size 6'3", 254. That's a little light for an edge rusher, but again, you get into the NFL on an NFL regiment, you're going to put weight on, and I'm not too overly concerned with that. I think that his energy off the edge it flashes off the tape. He's explosive at the point of contact. I feel like he's always disrupting things in the backfield. And I'm saying all this, hoping that he falls to the second. I don't think he's going to. I really do think he's a first round pick. You look at the tape and then the stuff he did at the combine and throughout his time at Penn State, the bend that he shows coming off the edge is just it's super high caliber in my opinion. A lot of people say he's only got like one move, but that's not what I've seen. I've seen an array of pass rush moves. I think that again, you get to the NFL level, you're going to learn more. The coaching takes a step up. You're going to be around guys like Jadeveon Clowney, and learning from one of the best that's in the league right now, and that's that has experience. So I'm a huge fan of Chop Robinson. If he's there at 33, and you're deciding between him or one of those top receivers that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, this is a hard choice for me. And honestly, he someone that I think could come in and fill Brian Burns' role. I think that his level or his ceiling that he can reach is that level. I genuinely do. Forget about the YGM stuff in that Penn State uniform. This is a completely different player. I think that he excels at pass rush, and that is confirmed. Take it with a grain of salt as PFF, but that pass rush grade is in blue there, and that's really good. So
It's impressive as hell.
yeah, it's very impressive. I think talking about getting an edge rusher, which is a need still for this team, they lack depth. DJ Wanham's a question mark. Even Jadeveon Clowney's a question mark. He was in a system in
Well,
Baltimore
and they only got those guys for 2 years, so it's like you gotta lock down someone long term at some point, and Clowney's at the
absolutely.
tail end of his career.
Yeah, and he was in a system in Baltimore that really allowed him freedom and opened things up for him based off of the defensive scheme that they were running under Mike McDaniel. I would say he's a question mark as well. I think he's obviously the best edge that we have right now. I don't think a lot of people are going to argue that, but you throw in a guy like Chop Robinson who's going to learn behind him and only progress throughout the starts that he gets as a rookie, and then year 2 and 3 and so forth. I think that the idea of that might outweigh the idea of drafting a receiver if he's on the board at 33.
Yeah, and just things to add on to what you were saying. He's got a quick first step. He ran a 4.49. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of his 40 when he comes off and loses it talking to his dad. But I mean, the guy's quick. I mean, he's real quick.
Yeah.
And he actually led the defensive end group with his 40. So pretty impressive numbers there. Some just interesting notes. He played as a 3-4 outside linebacker at Maryland, and then he ended up actually transferring because he felt like he was out of position, not be able to rush the passer. So he obviously went to more of hand in the dirt type pass rusher. Obviously, Carolina runs a 3-4, but I still think he fits that mold because of his quickness. And he can play coverage as well, kind of like Brian Burns did last year. We saw him in that in certain situations, and we know Evero has used that. But he can play inside or out. He's got versatility on the defensive line, and he's got really aggressive hands. So, and I was just looking up his RAS score. So his size is considered poor. 6'2", 250, so he's leaner. We obviously remember Brian Burns coming out leaner, and he put on some weight, or muscle, really. His speed grade for Raz is elite. I mean, he's got elite speed, which is kind of similar to Brian Burns. Like, Brian Burns was just quick, man. I mean, some of his gadget moves were ridiculous coming out, and I don't think Chop is up to that level, obviously, but he is quick. His 10-yard split was 99%, which is ridiculous for his position. And then his explosion grade was also great. His RAS was a 9.68. So he's athletic as hell. I think, if he's there, it would depend, and I kind of wanted to ask you this, and we'll talk about Nate Wiggins later, but if Nate Wiggins and Chop Robinson are sitting there at 33, who are you picking? Out of those two guys?
I'm going Chop Robinson, and I'm not really thinking twice about it.
Yeah, I think the more and more I've seen of him, I think you really fall in love with the player. Like you said, I don't think he's gonna fall to 33. He's been brought in by a lot of teams that have, picks in the 20s in this draft. So that could be where, he's picked up. But he's definitely one to watch, and, could be, that replacement for what Carolina really needs after losing Burns and YGM. Obviously, Clowney has fit that void. And, Mike brought up a good point last week. Carolina really has kind of 2 years to either get someone if they fall in this draft and don't force a need when you don't have to, or they can go out and get someone next year because they do. I mean, DJ Wanham with a viable D end aside of him, and Daniil Hunter had a pretty good season with Minnesota, whatever you want to call it, cleanup sacks, whatever. I mean, the guy still had 8 sacks. And
Yeah.
if you can get Clowney in that production of what he did, I think you have 2 viable options there. But at some point, you got to think long term, and I think Carolina, if a guy like this falls, they might look his way. I wanted to talk about another edge rusher, um, and that's Marshawn Nealand. Again, numbers across. You see the sacks in 2023. He had 6 of them. Um, pass rush win rate still impressive. It's not up to the level of Chop Robinson, but he's a little bit better run stopper, I would say, from what I've seen. And you can kind of see his grades there as well. Um, he plays with leverage. He likes to get under, the pads of the offensive tackles. He does have a bull rush ability, um, and he gets a ton of pressures. And that's kind of what you'd like. Obviously, we want to see all these guys have higher sack numbers. I mean, that's what everyone goes off of at this position. But um, this guy's got some run stop ability, and I think that's important in setting the edge for this defense. So he's a little bit bigger from what Chop was. He's 6'3", 267. I feel like this guy he's a plug and play type player. Throw him in there and let him go at it. But from what I've seen, and I can't remember who reported this, but they're saying Nealand's not going to make it out of the top 50. So if Carolina wants to get him, it's probably going to be with those first 2 picks. If a guy like Chop isn't there, or it's a scenario where Carolina picks at 33 and then maybe trades back and gets Marshawn a little bit later. I think you can't discount that he played at a smaller school in Western Michigan. So you'd like to see, he was pretty dominant at his position, which he should be because the talent isn't as great. So you got to take that in consideration. But he's definitely one, and he was on the list. Carolina brought him in. He was one of the top 30 visits. I'm almost positive he was on our list there.
Yeah, he was
from a couple slides ago. So he's one to take a look at. I don't want to spend too much time on some of these other ones, but Adise Isaac, he was also at Penn State, opposite Chop, a little bit leaner type guy. But I feel like he fits this 3-4 scheme of what Evero likes to. He's your prototypical, stand up and go after the quarterback type player. Obviously, see the pass rush win rate is down compared to Chop. A little bit better run stop ability from PFF. But the guy had 9 sacks last year, and that could be because of Chop on the other side. It kind of opened him up to more opportunities if you compare the two. So you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt too, kind of like the DJ Wanham statistics. But this guy's got some ability too. Obviously, he won't. I think you can maybe get him in the later rounds, maybe even at round 3 at 65 where Carolina's picking if he's there. But I've also seen some stuff where he's higher than most people think. So you got to kind of take those with a grain of salt in those mock drafts, because sometimes these players, coaches and scouts value them more than what the average day Twitter GM is out there. So, but yeah, he's got that athletic twitch to him from what I've seen and what I've read. And he's got some skill at the point of attack. So he could be one to watch too as well. And then Bryson, I'm sorry, I'll go one more here that
No,
I
you're
had.
good. You're good.
And that's Jonah Ellis. And the sack numbers, you got to look at it. I mean, 13 sacks is impressive as hell. Very high pass rush win rate at 17%. needs to work on his run stoppability. But this guy is a sack machine. I mean, it's impressive. The numbers he put up there. He was a 2-year starter at Utah. He played the right defensive end in a 4-by-2-by-5 scheme. He was an off-ball linebacker in high school, and then he transitioned to a pass rushing role. And that's where he really put it all together. He's got quickness. He's instinctive. But sometimes he relies more on his effort than his refined counters, and that can get him in trouble. But I think this guy's got some, true pass rush ability. I think his concern is against the run and setting the edge. So I don't think this guy would probably be there or a pick for day 2. I would think more of a day 3 type player. But who knows? Maybe he slips into the 3rd round, but he's another one to watch. That, I mean, you can't get away from those sack numbers. So he's another one to watch. And just let me pull up his RAS here real quick while I'm talking about him. But I believe Ricky was tweeting about him, kind of brought me on to him. So I started looking up some stuff on him because the numbers are impressive.
Yeah, I have not watched any of his stuff, so he has not been on my radar. But I mean, you can't deny those numbers and those grades. And Utah plays good competition, so I mean that's impressive. Absolutely.
I'm not finding a RAS on him, and I don't know if that's because they're saying he's does not qualify due to lack of measurements, so he maybe didn't get some of these measurements done. So maybe that's not possible to look at. But anyway, you can't discount the sack numbers. He could be one to watch and maybe someone, to take later in this draft. Let's go to corner now. And I will quit talking for a bit here, and Bryson, we'll go to you on this.
Okay.
And let's talk about Kool-Aid for a minute. What do you like about him?
Yeah, he's probably my favorite corner prospect that has a potential to be available at 33. I don't know how likely it is. I've seen some mock drafts that he's fallen. I've seen some where he's taken in the 1st. So I really think that it's unlikely. But, if he's there, then I think that's definitely someone that you consider. Considering the need that Mike talked about last week, kind of opened my eyes to, if J.C. Horn goes down, that secondary is looking bleak, to put it nicely, with Dane Jackson being cornerback 1. So, 6 foot, 199 pounds. You would like to see him run a little faster 40. He's a 4.47 40. But this is a corner that plays with, obviously from Alabama, a high-level player. The best name in the draft, Kool-Aid. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Five-star recruit, coming into college. Obviously, most are that go to Alabama, I feel like. In 2022, 12 games, 794 snaps, 29 tackles, 6 assists, 7 stops, 13 pass breakups. And then his passer rating allowed was a 59. So, he kind of struggled early on in his career at Alabama and then really settled in. I think that his awareness in zone and man are very impressive. His length overall is what you look for in a corner. His bump and run ability, I think in man, press man is what you look for at this level in the NFL. Ball skills, a cornerback, that's important. And he flashes on his ability to play the ball while it's in the air and in coverage. I think that he's probably one of the more physical corners coming out. He's a guy that's probably going to play similar to J.C. Horn. He's not afraid to hit. He seeks contact. I think that he'll bring an edge to the defense, like another corner we're going to talk about that I like a lot as well. But I worry about the speed a little bit. you know, keeping up with NFL receivers. I think that's possibly why some people are saying he might slip. But again, at Alabama, you're playing the best talent in the country, and that passer rating that I talked about just a couple seconds ago, I mean, it speaks for itself. So I think he's going to have to probably dial back his aggressiveness maybe a little bit. Sometimes he does get a little too aggressive, especially hand fighting with corners or with wide receivers. But I think that he is a corner that comes in day one and is the starter opposite of J.C. Horn with a cool name like Kool-Aid. That is exciting if that happens in Carolina.
Yeah, and just so give you a better idea at these numbers, apologize. It was hard to probably see when it was zoomed out, but zoomed in a little bit, you can get a better idea. And just so everyone knows, again, it's from left to right on that, horizontal graphic there. It's from 2023, 2022, 2021. The touchdowns are the touchdowns he gave up. Those aren't touchdowns that he scored.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously he played in a really stout and really good defense in Alabama, but yeah, I think he's impressive too. I think he plays quicker than his 40 from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And I would not hate this pick at all. I think it'd be great. Again, no, I have a feeling that he's not going to be there. We'll see what happens. I do think he gets knocked down with his 40 time 4.47. Just looking at his RAS score compared to JC, 7.5 to a 9.9. JC he was off the charts with his measurables. His just biggest thing is to stay healthy. So
yeah.
But yeah, I do think this guy I would not hate this pick whatsoever. Let's jump to another guy here that we both have done some stuff on, and I'll let you go first. And that's Mike St. Ristal. If I'm saying
is that how you say it?
I again, if that's how, I don't know how to say it. I'm going with that. St. Ristal. That's probably what it is. St. Ristal.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. That's why I was asking.
Mike St. Ristal. It's got to be that.
I really don't. I really don't know. Unfortunately. So yeah, this is a guy that's gained a lot of traction recently. I think there was a report saying that Carolina was high on him, and for good reason. This is a guy who transitioned from wide receiver to corner, and was good at both. He's 5'9", 182, but he plays like he's 6'4", 300. He's got a tenacity about him that, similar to Kool-Aid, like he is not afraid to lay the wood. Vertical of 40 inches. The 40 was a 4.47. I think what people really are struggling to comprehend is he's primarily a slot nickel corner, and Carolina doesn't really need that right now. They're pretty good on that with Troy Hill. They really need that corner opposite of J.C. Horn, and maybe they're considering Mike S is what I'll call him to transition to an outside corner on the NFL level. Again, the height and the speed are concerning, but this is another guy that I believe plays faster than his 40. Obviously, coming off a national championship, playing the best talent in the country. No worry there whatsoever. I think with his ability and his tenacity on the field, he is an exceptional blitzer. He is not afraid to go after a quarterback, and he gets home. So I like that a lot about him. I think that this is someone that's going to bring an edge to the defense, similar to Kool-Aid. He's competitive and he's scrappy. He does not back down from a challenge. I think that's why teams like him a lot. Looking at the grades on the screen, so a passer rating of 71.8 last year. Four touchdowns. That's how many touchdowns he allowed, and then 6 interceptions. That's
impressive.
That's impressive. Absolutely.
It's a lot of touchdowns, but that interception numbers, that's impressive.
Yep. And, his overall coverage grade was an 85, which is really good, especially playing the talent level that he did. With him being smaller, again, it is a little concerning. him playing outside with some of the best receivers in the NFL. Needs to put on some weight. I would think that would be a concern for an NFL team day one. Get him in the weight room, get him on that regiment, and put him some weight. He's going to be even more violent than he already is once he puts that weight on. And I love that kind of player, especially at the cornerback position. So if this is a player they're considering day two, round one essentially for Carolina, I would not be mad at all about that.
Yeah, and I'm going to just go back. I think there is a need there, and I'll tell you why. Troy Hill is old. He's like 34. I shouldn't slight him if he's not 34, but I believe he's that old. Let me see. Oh, he's 32. I'm sorry. So 32. He's a little bit older corner. They only got him for 1 year, so they need a nickel corner at some point long term. So I would not be shocked if they went this route. And he also fits. Troy Hill's a smaller dude as well. He's 5'10", 180.
Yeah.
My guess here is 5'9", 180. So that fits that Evero type corner. I mean, that almost seems, I don't know, that seems like he fits that mold for Evero's system. Like you said, I think it's obvious he is a nickel corner at the next level from everything I've seen. Big hitter, not afraid to take one. Almost plays kind of like a safety at times, I feel like.
Yeah.
Out there. And then the interceptions are impressive as well. Obviously, you can see from his PFF grades, his zone coverage is a little bit better than man-to-man. And from what all I've seen online, Evero ran, I believe, the third highest clip in zone coverage last year in the league. It was almost 70-30 from all the reports I've seen from PFF. So this guy would probably fit within his system. And like you said, there was a report out there that, this guy could go early second round, and Carolina might have their sights set on him. So this could be one to watch. I know it's nickel. It doesn't wow people. But I mean, I think I would prefer more obviously a corner opposite JC, because there is that concern there, and there's going to be injuries. It's just inevitable at this point with really any of those guys. It could happen. So you got to be ready for it. I probably prefer a couple other guys over him, but he will be one to watch because he does fit that mold of Evero's system. Let's move on. And I'll just touch on him. Then we can go to Nate Wiggins. TJ Tampa is a guy I got my eye on. Out of Iowa State, you see the numbers there. He was a 3-year starter there, played left outside corner. He was in a zone-heavy scheme. It's so hard to tell if Evero is going to be going more man, because he's gotten some players in there that could fit that too. So I don't know to get a read, but he's typically ran a very zone-heavy scheme with that secondary and that defense. So that would line up with Evero. He was actually recruited as a wide receiver, which is interesting. And then he moved obviously to corner. So he's got that familiarity, and obviously you would think be a better, a hands guy with the ball. It would be nice to see corners getting picks when it hits their hands. But he does have the ingredients to be a press man guy. So I do think this guy's got a lot of potential. He's not going to, from what I've watched of his, he doesn't get a lot of picks, but he locks you down. You ain't getting many. You look at his stats, 240 yards, only gave up 1 touchdown. Look at the passer rating. That's ridiculous. 54%. So he is your, he's going to try to lock you down. And I do think he's got the potential to be a premier starter opposite JC Horn. And that's what I think Carolina is looking for. And you might, or not might, I think you'll be able to get him at 39 or even in a trade back type situation. I don't know if he's going to be there in the third from what I've been reading, but this is a guy you could get at 39 or in a trade down and be satisfied with it. So he's one I really like and one to keep an eye on in this draft. I'll just remove this for a bit since I forgot. I apologize. I did not make a graphic for Mr. Nate Wiggins from Clemson. But Bryson, why don't you talk about him?
Yeah, Mr. Wiggins, I would say has the highest ceiling of any corner that is potentially available for Carolina at 33. I think it's not likely because of this, but 6'1", a 4.28 40, blazing speed, blazing. He's a guy, outside corner press man, gets down and dirty with the receivers. Obviously, playing at Clemson, the talent level, I guess some people don't believe the talent level is high in the ACC, but Clemson, they play good teams, and Mr. Wiggins impressed throughout. I keep going back
There
to
you
that
go.
40.
There's his stats while we have them. I didn't want to leave them out. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So an 83.9 coverage grade, starting at the left side for 2023. Look at that passer rating. That's probably the lowest that we've looked at up to this point. A 44.4, is that what it says?
Yep.
176 yards allowed, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, and he played in 494 snaps. The year prior, he played in 772 snaps and only allowed a 74 passer rating. So I think that this guy's ceiling is literally, like Michael Jordan puts it, is the roof. And, he's got the size, he's got the speed to really be an elite corner in this league. And I think that he shows that on tape as well. He's good in man and in zone. So if whatever Evero's plan is, Wiggins would fit into that, I think, flawlessly. I think that he can work on his back pedal a little bit and maybe not trying to rely so much on that 4.28 speed. But I think, trying to identify areas of weakness for Nate Wiggins is just nitpicking, in my opinion. I think that he is going to be a really good corner. I prefer more of the physicality of Kool-Aid. That's the only reason why I have Kool-Aid ranked above him. But when you're talking about a ceiling for anyone or any player, I think Wiggins is undoubtedly the highest between the two, just based off of his size and speed. A broad jump of a 127, a vertical, wasn't great of 36, but still a corner who's going to be able to play day one and be a starter for a lot of teams that would draft him. So I do like Nate Wiggins a lot. I hope that he falls, and I hope that the Panthers have to make a decision because he is an impressive guy.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to just mention on Wiggins, I really like him. I just don't think he's going to be there at 33, and if he falls, they better be putting in that car because I think he's going to be a really good player. The one that comes to mind was when and I can't remember who it was against, where he chased down the wide receiver to prevent a touchdown.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And he's just sprinting down the sideline, and the guy does not give up on the play. He's coming from behind out of nowhere and tackles him. That's a guy you want on a team. That's a dog. That fits Dan Morgan to a T. So if he's there and the guy's, like you say, Scott Speed, he is an impressive player. I just want to pull up his RAS here quick while we're talking about him.
His weight is going to bring him down big time. He only weighs 173 pounds. I think that's ranked in the bottom 1% of corners, defensive backs. So his
weight brings him down. You're right, but he's got a 9.42 RAS, which is really nice. So his size is okay, his explosion is good, and then his speed grade is elite. 9.9. His 20-yard splits a 94%. His 10-yard splits 96%. So like the guy has got elite speed. But the guy can add some weight. That doesn't concern me. And that I don't feel like that's gonna impact your coverage ability either, adding a little bit of weight. So I don't know. I think this guy could be really special, and one to watch if he does fall. And he was was he on that list that we had up of the 30 visits? He was not, but Carolina, I remember this. He had I think they sent a lot of guys to his pro day.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that was it in Clemson when they were there, because I
Yeah,
remember seeing something
and
specifically on that.
yeah, and the talk is, Carolina's never drafted a Clemson player, and they send a large contingent to Clemson, ideally to look at him. I think that they could kill two birds with one stone: draft a Clemson player and fill a very big hole in this team with a very good player.
All right, there's two more guys I want to just touch on, and just let me bring them up, and that's Max Melton and really Joe Person from the Athletics, the one that put me on. He had this guy in his mock draft, and I want to say it was the second round, maybe pick 39. It might have been the third. I can't remember, but he was in his mock, which puts him just. I was like, all right, maybe I need to look at this guy a little bit more, and just do a little bit more research. But you look at his coverage ability, and obviously his man coverage is slightly down. He's better. He's better in zone. But he was a 4-year starter at Rutgers. 30 passes defended and 8 interceptions over 3 seasons, which is pretty impressive. And his brother, you might know him. It's Bo Melton. I believe he's on the Packers. So he's got some history within the league. He's explosive with his speed. He's got attitude in coverage. He's a tough son of a gun type player, which will, if Carolina does go to more press man, this will help them out. And he's got experience inside and outside and on special teams. And I think that is valuable because some of these guys, that's where they make their living is on special teams to start. So, and I feel like special teams is going to have a lot more emphasis, obviously, this year with the new rule changes.
Yeah.
So this is one to watch. I was looking at a lot of, Dame Brugler's notes. Hopefully I'm not murdering his name on that. And if you haven't seen his beast, what do you want to call it? I mean, it's like an encyclopedia. It's crazy. But he was his 11th ranked corner. But I feel like he's a little bit higher than that from what I've watched of his Rutgers tape. So he might be one to watch for Carolina. And then briefly, I just wanted to touch on him. And the only reason why is because Carolina did bring him in. He was a local visit, mind you, out of Forest. I feel like Wake Forest sometimes can, produce some corners. So
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on him a little bit. Obviously, low interception numbers. Gave up 4 touchdowns this past season. So, I mean, this guy you're not going to probably get on day 2. This is more of a day 3, maybe I would think 5th, 6th round type player, maybe the 4th. But he was a 4-year starter at Wake Forest. He played in multiple schemes as a corner. But he offers versatility inside and outside, which is nice. And you can always use kind of a guy who can do both. Because you don't always get that. Some guys are just solely outside. Some guys are just solely inside at that nickel spot. I think he could be, an eventual starter. This is more of a depth piece than anything. But he would be one maybe, they bring in. Obviously, they brought him in on the local visit. So I just wanted to touch on him briefly. Not one I would go too high on. I feel like this guy could slip late in the draft. So just one to watch since they brought him in. But yeah, I think that covers all I had. Was there any other guys or any one else that you wanted to talk about as far as the defensive prospects? So I know we didn't touch a lot on defensive tackle. I know that was kind of brought up today with Ashawn Robinson's interview. that he talked with the media today. It sounds like, I know Mike K was under the impression, a couple others might have been under the impression that, and we might have even talked about this, where he was going to be the nose. And we did talk about this. I remember it, that we thought he was going to be the nose tackle for Carolina coming in from the New York Giants. That's not the case. It's going to be Derek Brown, the guy who's escaping me, who came from New Orleans, Shy Tuttle, and then it's going to be Robinson on the other side. So he'll technically be in that DN spot on that 3-4 defense. So there could be, a depth there maybe. Obviously, I know Carolina likes that rotation with, the other guys behind Tuttle that kind of stepped up last year. But that, they could use like a true nose. So that might be another position to look at. I didn't focus on that. I don't have a million hours to go and look at every single one of these guys like some people do. I just don't. And I know you don't either. So those are some other, I would say that's another position they could target next week, because I just wanted to make sure we covered most of it. I think linebacker, obviously we talked about. I think there's some depth there. They need to, at some point, they're going to have to replace Shaq Thompson. I think they're pretty much set at safety. I would be shocked if they got a safety in this draft. And then on special teams, I think they're set. They have one of the best special teams in the league when it comes to punter, kicker, and the longevity of JJ Jansen at long snapper. And got good grief, if we draft a long snapper, I'll lose my mind. But yeah, I think we've covered most of it. I think that, those are the positions. I'm sure there's other guys out there. We didn't look at everyone. I know there's, Darius Robinson comes to mind at edge for a possibility. And I know there's some couple others, but I just wanted to give you guys, our listeners, a little sense at some of the players that could be available and Carolina could maybe target as we get, with their first couple picks of the draft. So I think we're going to leave it there. We will be back next week. We'll be doing a mock draft with a bunch of people. I'm very excited. We did it last year. It's usually a long episode. It's fun. We'll go all rounds. I might use a different platform this time. I'm playing around with that a little bit. So we'll see which one we end up using. I think we used PFF last year. So we just want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Panthers on Tap podcast. You can catch our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Go give us a follow on Twitter at Panthers on Tap for all your analysis and breaking news. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We are very close to 500. We're
getting there.
We're at 470 something. It keeps increasing every week, so we appreciate it. Hit the like button on our videos, comment. We do our best to get back to you guys. But again, you subscribe, you get put into a drawing for a free Panthers customized jersey. Once we hit 500 subscribers, we will be picking a winner for that. And as always,